Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to the information session on the International Youth Fellowship with Aga Khan Foundation Canada. I'm just seeing that folks are trickling in. So welcome everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your lunch hour, if you are in lunch hour time zone, or your morning, wherever you may be. While we wait for more folks to trickle in, we are going to play a short video that gives a brief overview of the International Youth Fellowship. And once that's over, we'll get right into the session. We'll start the video now.
I think it's really important to connect to community because you're not only coming to support or help, but you're coming to bear witness.
The problems we're facing now are global problems. They're not isolated. You really have to think about how we address the challenges around the world as a global community and not independently.
It's just important to understand that because that builds understanding, and then again, empathy and community come from that.
We live in an era where we're more connected than we ever have been before, where we're able to learn and interact with one another.
And so if we want to preserve our planet, or what we have left of it, we have to be more sustainable.
Being Canadian, there's a unique perspective in that, a lot of people are immigrants themselves or the second and third generation.
I grew up hearing about pluralism every week, and it's something that, my family also always talks about.
So I think, Canadians are uniquely placed to be able to really navigate the space of development in a way that is more sustainable over time.
Because at the end of the day, that's what makes us Canadian.
This is really what life is about, experiencing something new every day, challenging yourself with the work.
Having the chance to really immerse myself and all these different new experiences, this is a great opportunity for me to learn and grow as well.
I think in this world that we live in currently, there's this narrative that in order for us to succeed, other people have to suffer. The number one thing that I have learned in this whole experience specifically is that's false.
Great, thank you. So welcome again, everyone. I think a few folks trickled in as the video was playing. So my name is Caro Rolando, and I'm the communications manager here at Aga Khan Foundation Canada. And I'm actually also a former fellow. I did the media fellowship in 2017 to 2018, actually in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm so excited to have you all here today. And what we will be doing in the session today is meeting two former fellows and one current fellow. So Amina, Zane, and McKinley, who you see here on the screen, and I think you saw in the event description. And we will also be chatting with Conrad and Ismina, who are program managers at Aga Khan Foundation Canada and who have been leading on the fellowship for many years. We will have some questions for them that actually have been sourced from questions a lot of you have sent in through Eventbrite at the beginning. And then in the second half of the session, we will open it up to questions live. Just some housekeeping. When you submit your question through the Q&A function on Zoom, please, if you have an idea of who you would like to answer it specifically, please note that in the question. We will do our best to get through as many questions as possible, but unfortunately, it might be hard to answer all the questions that get sent in live. But we do have, if for some reason what we answer today or what we present today doesn't answer your questions, we have a frequently asked questions page on our website that you can always access as well. And we are recording this, so this you can always look back and go back to this recording if anything you want to go back to. So I will start by introducing Ismina and Conrad, who work together very closely to select fellows every year and develop the pre-departure training seminar, establish placements, and keep up with the fellows throughout their placements. So I will turn it over to them to give a brief overview of the program. So please take it away.
Thank you very much, Caro. Thank you to all those attending today's session for your interest in Aga Khan Foundation Canada's International Youth Fellowship Program. My name is Azmina Nazar Ali, and I'm the program manager for AKFC's flagship program, the International Youth Fellowship.
Everyone, my name is Connor Kozrowski. So 10 and a half years ago, I was an international youth fellow myself, stationed in northern Uganda as an M&E officer. And I've held a variety of roles at Aga Khan Foundation in the interim, and one of the ones I hold nearest and dearest to my heart is working on the International Youth Fellowship Program, where I support Azmina in both screening the applications, conducting the interviews, and also I act as the lead facilitator for the pre-departure training. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that shortly. Back to you, Azmina.
Excellent. Thank you, Conrad. So let me begin by providing a brief overview of the fellowship. The fellowship program offers a unique opportunity for young leaders in Canada to bring a global dimension to their careers. Through an intensive training seminar and an 8-month overseas placement, fellows get hands-on experience in international development while supporting strong, effective local institutions in Africa and Asia. The fellowship is one of AKFC's wide range of opportunities for individuals from Canada to exercise and express their global citizenship. And through these opportunities, AKFC creates knowledge-sharing platforms to learn about development contexts and challenges, and to partner with local institutions to jointly change lives for the better. Since 1989, over 550 young Canadians have launched their careers by participating in the program, many of whom have since become leaders in the sector. As I'm sure some of you are already aware, to be considered for the fellowship, the applicants must, as the program is funded by the Canadian government, applicants must be either Canadian citizens or permanent residents of Canada. And in keeping with the definition of youth by Global Affairs Canada, applicants must be 30 years of age or younger at the time of the application deadline. Next, applicants must be able to demonstrate qualities of and characteristics of global citizens. And finally, applicants must hold at minimum an undergraduate university degree and not be associated with any university program over the course of the placement. Now, I'll talk about the timeline of the application process. So the application process begins in December, and the deadline this year is February 14th. Thereafter, the applications are viewed and shortlisted for interview by external reviewers and an interview panel. Interviews are generally conducted in March. The quality of applicants is matched with potential placements, and contracts are signed by end of April. After signing the contracts, you will be guided through the mandatory requirements such as medical insurance clearance, any vaccines required for the area that you'll be placed in, police background checks. And it should be noted that the fellows receive comprehensive medical insurance coverage beginning in May to support the vaccination-related expenses. So the program runs from June with a pre-departure training seminar here in Ottawa, and fellows depart for the field in July for a period of 8 months, and the placements come to a closure at the end of February. The fellowship is fully funded. Aside from international airfare and medical insurance, AKFC also provides a monthly stipend that will adequately cover reasonable accommodation, food, utilities, and local transportation costs while in the field. In addition, some monies are provided ahead of time for language training, obtaining of a local cell phone or SIM card, and also malaria medication as relevant. In addition to that, travel within Canada to attend the training seminar in Ottawa, as well as other related expenses, are also covered. Now I'm going to hand it over to Conrad, who will provide more information on the pre-departure training and the experience in the field. Thank you.
So much, Asmina. I'm in charge for planning the pre-departure training for the last 5 years, and I can proudly say that the pre-departure training has long been cited as one of the highlights of the fellowship experience, both for its practical training benefits that it yields, but also for the lifelong social bonds that it creates within the cohort as it takes place, what we also call our International Development Boot Camp. The training takes place in Ottawa, as Asmina mentioned, over a roughly 3-week period, and fellows will stay together in downtown Ottawa and attend daily sessions at the delegation of the Smiley Amamet, which is where the AKFC offices are located. The training was created jointly by myself and many former fellows, asking ourselves one question: what do you wish you had known before starting your placement or before you had your first permanent job in the sector? Our training covers international development fundamentals such as results-based management, monitoring and evaluation, incorporating gender equality and climate change adaptation integration, and it introduces you to global leaders in the field to discuss thematic ideas such as using microfinance institutions to drive local change, transforming healthcare systems holistically, or conducting education programs with a whole-of-community approach. These lessons are brought home through multiple daily practical assignments where we're using actual documents, processes, and tools from our global portfolio, so you get some opportunity to experience what you will in the field before you even set foot in an office. And it culminates with a final team-based assignment that is presented to a wide selection of senior managers in the organization, hiring managers from across the sector, and several members from Global Affairs Canada. Finally, all fellows will receive a training on safeguarding personal security and also be connected to past alumni to ensure that they have multiple points of contact before their arrival in country. So after the seminar, everybody goes home for a period of 1 to 2 weeks, and then you will head out to your destination with your cohort. Upon arrival, within the first week, you will undergo a 1 week plus orientation by the local AKF unit, where you will be supported with securing a place to stay that is safe, affordable, and accessible to the office, obtaining methods of payment, whether it is exchanging cash or getting an M wallet, registering a SIM card or cell phone, and guided through practical day-to-day realities such as where to buy food, how to do it, or what safe transportation services you require. So I will pause here because the actual experience in the field will probably be best covered by our most recent alumni. So I'm going to hand it back to Caro. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Conrad and Asmina. And the departure training seminar that Conrad mentioned, we actually, the fellows from this year's cohort, the media fellows made a great kind of behind the scenes video look at what that's like. So we'll post that in the chat in a bit. You can take a look just to get a taste of it. So I will now turn this over to the fellows to share a little bit about their fellowship experiences and what got them there, where they're at now, what it was like. So I'm pleased to introduce McKinley Richards. McKinley was a fellow in 2022 in the Kyrgyz Republic, and McKinley is currently based in Georgia, the country. So I will pass that over to you, McKinley.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for inviting us here to share more about our experience. So yeah, as mentioned, I completed my fellowship in Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan, where I worked with Accelerate Prosperity, which is an enterprise accelerator and impact investor in Central and South Asia. So just to thank you, there's some photos to show more about our experience. But just to share more about why I applied, before the fellowship, I worked at a grant management consulting firm that channeled private donor funding to nonprofits across North America. And this was an excellent role, but since I studied international development and economics, I was eager to work in a more global context. And specifically, I was drawn to apply to the microfinance and micro enterprise stream of this fellowship because I was super involved in social entrepreneurship in university, and I'd also completed a different fellowship in impact investing in the Canadian sector. So I just saw this as an opportunity to really bridge all these different passions, for contributing to global development, but then also to explore other ways of deploying capital for good, and specifically through supporting businesses and entrepreneurship globally. So I guess when I arrived in Bishkek, to share more about what I did on the fellowship, my role was somewhat undefined because there were some changes with my placement that allowed me to have the opportunity to really see where I could bring the most value. And in reality, that was supporting the team internally. And for the investment team, that meant setting up a portfolio management process to help them monitor the companies that the team had invested in, and then to actually be able to support and ensure their success. I just think it's worth mentioning because, due to language barrier, which is an important factor of working abroad, it meant that I wasn't the best fit to be out, sourcing companies, sourcing entrepreneurs, but I could be supporting the team internally. And so, yeah, by, helping them with their operations and whatnot. So that was a good portion of the first half. And then the turning point in my fellowship came when I was asked to support with this inaugural regional acceleration program that focused on tech companies. And this was the first time that Accelerate Prosperity ran a program for all of its countries together. So Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Pakistan, and some involvement with the Afghanistan team. But unfortunately, they couldn't participate in what culminated in the in-person event in Dubai, where each of the startups presented at a demo day and pitched to investors. So I really jumped into this role. I helped with all aspects of recruiting, selecting the startups, coordinating the rollout of the program, helping organize the event itself, traveling to Dubai. And it was, I mention it because it was definitely the most memorable experience. And the part that was most memorable was being able to collaborate with the team members across all these different countries and across cultures, and then get to meet everyone in person and support all of these the different entrepreneurs, by connecting them with the resources they need to grow and succeed. So super memorable experience, and then also quite instrumental because in a way it shaped the trajectory of my career and led to my current role. During this regional program, we Accelerate Prosperity had invited mentors from BC firms to volunteer and support the participants. And one of those mentors was Robin, who's a partner at Sturgeon Capital, where I currently work. And so for context, they're a London-based BC firm focused on early stage tech companies across the same region, Central and South Asia and the Caucasus. And so after my fellowship ended, Robin actually reached out and offered me a project which later snowballed into the role I have now as head of impact. So, and that was specifically because he really appreciated my lived experience in Kyrgyzstan and the connections I made in the region. So, I can speak more about what I do now if people are interested later, but super amazing experience that this fellowship was able to bridge my passion for entrepreneurship, for economic development, and lead to the career I have now, where I get to continue to make an impact and in the same region. So hope that gives a bit of a picture of what I did on my fellowship and where it's led me today.
Thank you so much, McKinley. That's fantastic. What an adventure. And your photos are great. I want to visit Kyrgyzstan. Now passing it over to Zane, who was also in Kyrgyzstan, I believe in the same year as McKinley, and who is now based in Edmonton to tell us a bit about his experience with the fellowship and where he's at today.
Thanks so much, Caro. Yeah, my name is Zane. I also was a fellow in 2022 in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, alongside McKinley and a few other fellows that were all based in Bishkek. My background was a little bit different. I did have a bachelor's in international development where I studied it kind of theoretically in university. However, I do have a master's in teaching where I taught high school social sciences for a couple of years before I applied to the fellowship. And I applied to the fellowship more with the intention of getting more involved in educational development. However, as you'll probably learn throughout your application process, there are different needs that different local agencies have for support, which fellows do provide. And in my case, I was actually offered a partnerships opportunity whereby there was a local agency that's in Kyrgyzstan that required a little bit of support with some business development skills and relationship management skills. And I had accumulated a little bit of those, not only as a teacher, but also through a summer job just after graduating high school. And it just happened to be a really good fit where I was able to offer some skills with relationship management, my key writing skills, and was able to kind of support Foundation Kyrgyz Republic in supporting writing proposals to secure funding to actually implement projects both at the local, regional, and national levels. When I was kind of offered this partnerships opportunity, I was a little bit uneasy because I was initially thinking, well, how does this relate to my career in education and my kind of background within teaching? However, it kind of did open up my mind to being able to leverage my skills that I learned from the classroom and learned from university to creating impact by kind of speaking out for individuals who require that support. So a little bit of like kind of context as to what partnerships does involve is not only does it involve kind of asking for money through written format, but you're also kind of building relationships and advocating for local communities within Kyrgyzstan or wherever you're based. So that involved visiting many local site projects and talking to many community members in the regions that we did serve in Kyrgyzstan, and pretty much voicing these concerns and voicing these needs to different donors, whether they be multilateral or bilateral actors as well. So that was a really cool opportunity where I got to meet some really influential people within the region and also hear some fantastic and inspiring stories from local citizens across the Kyrgyz Republic. However, I was also really grateful to Icon Foundation Canada for kind of helping me shape this fellowship to involve a little bit of education, which is where I brought my background and brought a lot of strengths to. So I was able to partner with the University of Central Asia, who was also present in the region, where I was able to provide a little bit of context and support in developing virtual pedagogical resources to help professors, instructors in their virtual pedagogy and classroom delivery skills. So for a couple months while I was in Kyrgyzstan, I was able to put together a training workshop to train some of these individuals on how to effectively deliver online training to students. So I was really grateful to AKFC for being able to kind of blend my passion for education, but also help me garner some new skills in relationship management and advocacy skills to kind of propel me to where I am right now, which is back home in Edmonton, Alberta, where I work as a philanthropy officer, where I secure major gifts for the healthcare in Alberta. So as you probably saw in those photos there too, we got to work a lot with donors and advocate for those in need, and that's pretty much what partnerships is. So I'm happy to answer any more questions later on, but I'll throw it back to Caro.
Lovely, thank you so much, Zane. That's great. And now turning it over to Amina Beg, who is based in Tanzania at the moment and is actually currently engaged in her fellowship and her placement. Amina, take it away.
Thanks so much, Carl. Zayn and McKinley did a very good job, so I'll try to follow suit at the same level. Thanks everyone for being here. My name is Amina Baig, and I'm currently based in Dar es Salaam as a climate education fellow. So I'm working regionally with AKF East Africa, but based physically at the office here and working between Dar es Salaam and Zanzibar mainly. So before my fellowship, essentially, I had just finished up my master's. I have a background in global development, both for my undergraduate and my master's degree. And after going straight from my schooling to more schooling, I decided to take a break and backpack and travel a little. And when I came back and was thinking about what the next step of what I wanted to do with my life, my uncle reached out to me, and as Conrad mentioned, we have a really strong alumni network for the fellowship and largely within the AKDN too. So I heard about the opportunity from my uncle, and I thought it would be a good one as I wanted to use it kind of as a point of reflection for my next step while also getting more practical on the ground experience in a context that I wasn't necessarily familiar with. So what my role is essentially is I'm working on the climate and education portfolios here in Tanzania and then largely across East Africa and bridging the gap between these two portfolios for our climate education initiatives. So what my primary role looks like is essentially teaching educators how to integrate climate action solutions into their everyday pedagogies through things like content creation and workshop development, evaluating the feasibility and how appropriate the climate solutions we're using are for the context that we're in, and seeking opportunities for new targeted climate interventions in the communities that we are working with. And some context into what this looks like every day for me is things from designing data collection and analysis strategies in our communities, designing, co-facilitating, iterating workshops, writing high-quality reports to donors and partners, and also more accessible comms materials for wider audiences, while supporting our partnerships teams to also find organizations who have common goals in this kind of up-and-coming field of climate education. So I've really been enjoying the experience so far. Like Caro mentioned, I'm currently here in Dar es Salaam, and I'm in the last month of my 8-month placement. And I've been really enjoying the opportunity to gain new experience, particularly in this role in the education sector, and fulfilling the role that was under my direct terms of reference with the fellowship, while also essentially getting to create work that I'm interested in. And I saw that there's a bit of a question about this in the Q&A, so I'll kind of touch upon it now. But yeah, I've been able to really not only follow the work that was given to me in my TOR, but create my own projects and follow what I'm interested in, my passions, while I fill the gaps that my organization might be experiencing. So yeah, it's been great so far. Happy to answer more questions. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Amina, and also your photos are out of this world. I'm glad you've had such a positive experience so far. So I am going to pass over to the Q&A portion of the session. And actually, we are going to start by answering questions that were sent to us through Eventbrite prior to this event. So these are questions from hopefully some of you attending. And actually, Amina, I'm going to ask you first. Do you feel like you were well equipped with knowledge and skills to add to your placement? And if not, how might you be overcoming that?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So I would say yes and no. On the yes side, I definitely felt confident in my theoretical foundation in the field of sustainable development, just based off my education, as well as some of the practical experience that I'd gained working abroad. Beyond this, I believe that I kind of had qualities such as curiosity, adaptability, and perspective that I'd gained through those experiences, which served as added value to my placement. And I feel like those qualities have helped me approach my work and challenges that I may have experienced with creativity and open mind and a general willingness to learn, which I think are skills that are essential for this type of fellowship. On the no side, I'd break it down into two parts. First, I would say there are many context-specific aspects of this role. Through school and work, I had never focused on this region of the world. And while I researched, and I strongly encourage you to research the location you get placed, there are a number of interpersonal and intercultural aspects that you can only really learn when you get on the ground, such as communication and work styles, office dynamics, and navigating your role as a foreigner in the context of where you were placed. And that's also new knowledge that I gain every day that I'm here. It never really ends. My second reason comes more from the technical side of the work. For example, while I was very confident in certain skills like report writing and qualitative data collection and analysis prior to arriving, I had less experience in areas like, drafting budgets or conducting quantitative data analysis. And I think it's really important to note that no one expects you to be an expert in everything when you arrive at your fellowship posting. The pre-departure seminar in particular provides great preparation, but there'll always be areas where you feel stronger and areas where you have less experience, which sometimes might make you feel a bit of imposter syndrome. But for both of these, I think the most important thing to remember is that this role is all in all a learning experience, and it will be ultimately really about what you make it. And I was thrown into, and on many occasions threw myself into, a wide breadth of tasks from the get-go. And I would say the best thing I did to navigate essentially the unknown was to, from the start, approach my role as an opportunity to learn from the incredible staff on the ground who bring a really large wealth of knowledge and are often willing to share it. The key is just to demonstrate that you are proactive and eager to learn. So yeah, ultimately, I think if you stay curious, adaptable, and open to these new experiences, you'll not only overcome potential feelings of imposter syndrome, but also grow tremendously in the process while adding strong value to your placement. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Amina. And I think the point about really learning from our colleagues on the ground there is super important. It's an exchange. We're not going there, kind of tell them what to do. And in fact, it's much more a learning opportunity for us as fellows, and to see how we can best support them in doing work that they're already experts in and are really good at and have the context work in. So I'm going to now turn it over to Zane. This was another question that came up in the Eventbrite. What are you doing after the fellowship? You alluded to this a bit in your intro. And how do you think your experience helps you with that today?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I work as a fundraiser for the University of Alberta Hospital Foundation here in Edmonton. And a lot of the skills that I learned at the pre-departure training session in Ottawa prior to the fellowship, as well as throughout my entire fellowship, are so applicable to what I'm doing today, mainly because it involves kind of doing a little bit of stakeholder mapping, stakeholder kind of engagement as well. So what that is essentially is taking a look at kind of different donor contexts, or looking at individuals' passions and what kind of interests they have in terms of making an impact, and really kind of connecting them to making the impact that they'd like to make. And so that's kind of my role as a philanthropy officer right now. And that is essentially what I was also doing in Kyrgyzstan as a partnerships fellow, where I would work with my colleagues to approach different partner organizations or donors within the region to align their interests and their kind of key areas of impact with the projects that we're looking to carry out and some of the needs that we were hoping to fill in the region as well. So how that translates into what I'm doing right now is essentially looking for donors locally, provincially, or nationally that seek to kind of have an impact in healthcare, and connect them to making that and that impact that they're looking to make at different levels. So I would also say that kind of managing those really high net relationships and high net worth relationships is also a key skill that I built in Kyrgyzstan, where we're talking to governments and multilateral organizations about millions and millions of dollars. It's it's a very sensitive subject to talk about money and to actually ask for money too. So I think that's a really particularly important skill that I learned in Kyrgyzstan that I'm definitely doing on a daily basis here in Edmonton.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Zane, for that. A question for McKinley. What was your experience with the local team like during your placement?
Yeah, thanks. I love this question because in many ways, the local team really made my experience. You mentioned it in my intro, but I still live and work abroad. So I'm now based in Tbilisi, Georgia. But I have more of a remote role in a smaller team. So I look back at my time in Kyrgyzstan with so much gratitude for the really meaningful relationships that I was able to develop with my local team, which is, I think, something that's quite special, not just as colleagues, but also as friends. That meant that I was, genuinely immersed and got to develop like a much stronger understanding of Kyrgyz culture because they were my good friends while living there. So, yeah, they've also continued to be important relationships. I'm planning to visit the friends I made in Kyrgyzstan in March, but also in a professional setting. I mentioned I still work in this region, so I act as a connector. I've made sure all of my investment team members continue to volunteer at AP as mentors. And I've also been able to introduce different ecosystem players to my old colleagues at Accelerate Prosperity, and invite them to our events. Still, I get to still see them at different events. So yeah, that close relationship I developed was really, I guess, really made my placement.
Fantastic. Thank you, McKinley. Another question that came in is about placements and how they will be determined, and whether you can choose which country you get posted to. So I will direct this question to Ismina.
Thank you, Caro. Certainly, I can answer that. So placements are determined through a locally led process where local agencies determine their needs. They present terms of reference that they would like to engage the fellow on. And based on the background and skills that the selected candidates bring, we then work with senior management to determine a short list of placements for the fellows. So, for example, this year, we hope to place about 10 to 12 fellows in the field. And in terms of another question that I think is usually asked about country choices, I'll just say that in terms of country choices, applicants can state their preferences in the application and during the interview. However, ultimately, a placement is determined by aligning host agency local needs and fellows' potential to contribute. I hope that answers it.
Thank you so much, Ismina. That's great. And kind of on the vein of applications and determining placements, Conrad, maybe you can tell us a bit about what you're looking for in a fellow and whether you have any advice on the application.
Thank you, Caro. Yeah, that's probably the number one question that we get, so I'm glad we get to answer it. What we're looking for is someone who can demonstrate a good combination of marketable skills, passion for human development, whether it's in Canada or internationally, a genuine sense of curiosity about pluralism, and a proven ability to be adaptable in a wide variety of circumstances. And actually, it was really interesting that all three of our former fellows kind of used all these keywords even in the presentations. So, clearly this checks out. We look for a different variety of fellows. So, for example, on one hand, we have some of our fellows who have 2 to 3 years of relevant experience, and they want to use this as an opportunity to sharpen their skills in a larger, very recognizable organization to open new doors for the long-term career. But we also have a lot of other fellows who are much more recent graduates, but have some relevant volunteer academic work experience, but they very clearly demonstrated in their application and interview that they are coachable, have a growth mindset, and clearly can envision themselves within the sector. So 4 things to kind of connect that together is being passionate, demonstrating adaptability, clearly saying that you're coachable and always willing to learn, commitment to human development, whether it is in Canada or abroad. And then I believe there's a follow-up for me as well as some tips for the application as well. So I've got 4 for you. Number 1, This shouldn't come as a surprise, but please proofread your application so much of the roles center around English writing and communication skills. And so we do put a lot of onus in the type of writing skills that are present with your application. So please make sure to proofread before submitting. Number two, be yourself. We get a sense when someone is putting on a facade, whether it's in the application or in the interview. We really want to get to know you as a professional, as a human being, and we want to understand how you genuinely, as an individual, would handle a constantly changing environment and essentially how you would navigate this sector. So again, demonstrate adaptability, compassion, intercultural sensitivity. If you have examples of these, find ways of incorporating this into your application. This will also be something that we'll be looking for when we're looking for things like your reference letters or like evidence of this in your CV, etc. Number three, if you have skills that you feel align with some of the roles that you see within the fellowship, please demonstrate with concrete, quantifiable examples, either both within the written application or within your CV. So don't just say that have experience in grant writing. Tell us what size of grants you've written, for what dollar amount, for what size of organization. Don't say that you've led teams of volunteers. We want to know like how big, because leading a team of 2 volunteers, leading a team of 200 volunteers, completely different types of skill sets. So we want to be able to understand that. And finally, number 4, prove to us that you have thought through exactly what this opportunity will do to shape your career and your life moving forward. And that's something that's very important for us. This is a huge investment in time and money from AKFC Foundation, Global Affairs Canada, and all the team, both here in Canada, internationally, who put into it. So, we want this to be an opportunity that you have clearly thought through how this will shape your life, because we have thought through on how it could kind of like the changes that can be made kind of on this side. So be sure that you can kind of prove to us and kind of show that continuum moving forward. All right. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Conrad. That was extremely helpful. So we are now going to move to answering some of the questions that have come in throughout the session so far through the Q&A function. So we've gotten quite a few. Thank you, everyone, for submitting your questions. So the first one I will direct to Ismina. Ismina, do you have a sense of how common it is to continue working with your fellowship placement or in that area after 8 months? Or is that at all possible?
Thank you for that, Carol. Yes, it is an important question that I know is asked quite frequently. There is a program called KEDEX, or Canadian Development Exchange Program, which is a separate program that AKF Canada runs, which is specific to capacity building needs of host agencies being fulfilled. And under that program, we have a small amount of budget where if the host agency feels that the fellow has contributed something very meaningful over the course of the 8 months that they were there, and they could certainly use the fellow's support for another few months, the opportunity is then presented to AKF Canada for review through the host agency. And if funds are available, we can extend the fellow's placement in the field for up to a maximum of 4 months. However, with the caveat, of course, that the request is based on the ask from the host agency with a very concrete terms of reference and deliverables for that period of time.
Great, thank you. Oh, sorry.
Just to jump onto that, actually. And so like beyond this opportunity, like we do find that around 85 to 90% of fellows gain some type of employment like within their desired sector, like after the conclusion of their fellowship. So you have the example of like McKinley, like was able to kind of like leverage the opportunity like while there, but we also have other examples where perhaps another agency saw potential and was able to kind of hire them directly as like a staff member. We have a number of those examples, or they're just through some of the networking opportunities through meeting stakeholders that they're able to kind of turn that into like a job opportunity. as well.
Great, thank you. And I'll just quickly note from my personal experience as a media fellow, I didn't stay on, but having been in the field there was very, for folks in media in Canada, knowing that I was in the field and that I was getting that experience was very attractive to them for newsrooms here, and knowing that you have those contacts and experiences. So just putting that out there for potential media fellows who might be on this, or prospective media fellows who might be on this call. Just another note or another question for Mina and or Conrad. Is there a condition or restriction to those who have used AKF related funding or scholarships in the past? Can those folks still apply for the fellowship?
I can answer that. If you have availed yourself to an AKFC fellowship in the past, then this is always a one-time deal, and you cannot apply for another fellowship. However, I will mention that a number of fellows have inquired in the past that they might have done an international youth internship program through GAC. And those individuals are welcome to apply to the fellowship.
Yeah. And just also to jump on, I suspect this question might be related to perhaps like a recent immigrant to Canada who might have lived in one of our countries where we do have AKCON Foundation-led scholarship and internship programs. And so, yes, you are entirely eligible if you have been through one of these programs, as long as you meet the other criteria.
Thank you both so much. That's great. Question for Zane. I believe you've touched on this a bit, but how was your international placement experience recognized when you returned to Canada and sought work opportunities, particularly by Canadian employers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that when I came back to Canada, I was looking for employment. I think a lot of employers were attracted by the aspect of having the experience in a different region. That kind of shows your adaptability, your open-mindedness, and I think that's a key skill. These are some really key skills to have in any job, to be honest. And I think particularly when it comes to relationship management and interacting with donors who might have had kind of like similar experiences across the world when it comes to travel, I think it kind of offered me some great kind of similarities and talking points to kind of help strengthen these relationships with individuals who may have had experience in the region. So I think Canadian employers really do appreciate the skills that you gain generally as an AKF fellow because of obviously the ability to think critically and be adaptable in whatever space you're placed in, and deal with challenges that are with the cards that you're dealt to. So I think a lot of Canadian employers really value the adaptability you can show as a previous fellow.
Thank you so much, Zane. And actually a question related to you, Zane, but I think more of a question for Conrad, which is a question related to career shift. This person asked in the Q&A if they could express that they'd be interested in a career shift in their application. Is that something that's welcome to know in the application, or would that put that person at a disadvantage?
More than welcome. We love to see it, actually. Again, it's all about envisioning yourself. We have had a number of fellows who've come from like everything from like teachers, lawyers to engineers to you know, like lab-based scientists who just kind of like saw their own future in a completely different direction. They saw how they could take some of the requisite skills and apply it, and they made the case saying like, you know, I want to kind of focus my energies more in this, and I want to kind of shift my experiences. And they made that case to us in both the applications. So yeah, definitely. And particularly if your resume feels like it might not necessarily be like a natural fit, definitely kind of explain kind of why. And ultimately, sometimes that actually kind of builds your case even like better, because, you know, we want to see people who have a clear vision on where this program can take them. And if you're thinking of doing, you know, a life-changing career shift, like, you know, we're here to support it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. A question for McKinley. your experience for fellows placed in the same country, but who are assigned to different schemes or placements. Do you know if fellows typically live together, kind of shared housing, or in the same city?
Yeah, in our cohort, that is what happened. So Zayn and I lived together because we both moved to Bishkek at the same time. And Ismina can confirm this, but I'm pretty sure that most fellows are placed with at least one other person in the same city. And like I said, in our cohort, it was the case that most of those two would look for housing together. But I mean, that was for the first half, it was Zayn and I, and the second half, we had a Kazakh girl move in with us. So a bit of a mix, both with some, new friends and fellows. So it's not required, but I do think it is easiest just based on the timelines.
Thank you, McKinley, and I can concur on that. In that, I think we make an extra effort to ensure that fellows are placed in every city, at least in pairs, if not more, because we recognize the need for that kind of social support and having another Canadian going through the same experiences. And it makes a lot of sense for us to place at least 2 fellows in every city that we have placements in.
Thank you. And I will note as well, I think as Amina mentioned, we have a very strong alumni network. And often alumni will support each other. They still have contacts there. They might support each other in finding housing. They might still have contacts. That's how I found my place in Nairobi. It was thanks to a former fellow who had lived there. So you won't be alone in finding housing or roommates or that kind of thing. There will be more than likely kind of a network of people or folks to kind of support you with that. So we have a question specifically for you, Amina. You mentioned conducting some data collection, and this person would be interested to hear exactly what data collection was conducted and your involvement in these projects.
Yeah, sure. So I've participated in data collection in a few different ways. Personally, I've designed mixed method surveys, which are directed at some of the schools that we're working with, in order to conduct a needs assessment and a feasibility study for climate resilience and adaptation strategies, things that include improved cooking and rainwater harvesting. And then I use those responses to determine whether and what form of these strategies would be appropriate at each school and what our budget would actually allow. I've also participated in workshops with partners where our project participants from various sectors come together to assess the resilience of the Tanzania education system to climate extremes and disasters. So we provide a number of indicators that speak to this, and after scoring each indicator, individual scores are averaged to determine the overall result for each one. And the indicators highlight priority areas for action, such as increasing the attendance of girls at school. And then we take those and we engage in consensus-driven discussion to identify and finalize what necessary actions we can take to address those priority areas. And then in another project, as another example, I also analyze the monthly data we collect from our teachers and CSO educators for out-of-school youth to determine whether the climate action solutions they've implemented in their pedagogy plans have had a positive correlation on teaching outcomes and learning outcomes, such as literacy and numeracy. So based on the responses from those, I can then make iterations to our data collection strategies and also ensure that our teachers are on the right track for our project goals. Yeah, those are just a few examples, but their data collection can take many forms, whether it's you're crafting it yourself, like I've been able to do, or you're following some of the work that our partners are doing on some of the existing projects that we have.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Amina. So we have about 6 minutes left. I'll ask a few more questions, and the fellows can stay on. After that, Ismina and Conrad and I we can stay on a few more minutes to try and answer a few more questions, but just flagging that we have about 6 minutes left with our wonderful fellows here. Unless the fellows are available to stay on, there's no pressure because people are busy. So Another question we have received, I think, in numerous ways is whether AKFC has considered revisiting the age restriction for the fellowship or developing similar opportunities for mid-career professionals. So maybe Ismina, if you feel comfortable answering that, I'll turn that.
Sure. As you know, I stated earlier, one of the main criteria is that this is considered a youth fellowship program. And this program is supported by GAC. And so we abide by their guidelines of youth as being at the age of 30 or under in order to be able to be eligible for this program, since it is considered a youth fellowship program. In terms of other opportunities, you know, the AKDN actually has numerous programs similar to what we have, maybe internships, etc., through, say, the Aga Khan University or other opportunities. I would encourage individuals to actually visit the AKDN website to learn a bit more about such opportunities and internship programs that are offered through other AKDN agencies aside from AKF Canada.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nina. There's a question about potential host agencies. Is there any resource or document that people can access that lists these potential host agencies?
Not really. My recommendation is to go again to the AKDN website. Again, any AKDN agency within East Africa or Asia can apply to host a fellow. And so this is an opportunity to learn more about the other, agencies within the network as well. But in theory, any of these agencies that are located in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Mozambique, Kyrgyz Republic, Tajikistan, or Pakistan could, in theory, put an application to host a fellow and then be matched with one. So yeah, if you want to know what's out there potentially, that's a good place to start. So the AKDN website.
Beautiful, thank you. And kind of related to that, there was a question about whether there are opportunities to work for AKFC or AKDN after the fellowship in Canada.
I don't know, Caro, is there? The joke to everybody in the audience is that Caro and I are both alumni, but at any given point in the office, I'd say we probably have anywhere from like 6 to 9 people who are fellow alumni, and that's just in the Canada office. There's a fellowship alumni if throughout the whole AKDN. One just started in the UK office. We've had them in the US office and across like the whole international offices. So yes, there are many opportunities. And in fact, various parts of the network definitely look to the fellowship as kind of like a proving ground and almost like a recruitment tool because they get to see, these bright young professionals firsthand in the field. And then they come with extensive references from, essentially like their colleagues. So yes, a lot of people go on to stay within the network, including here in Canada.
Thank you so much, Conrad. Yeah, we just have about a minute left. So maybe I'll just ask if the fellows, if there's anything else that you wanted to add, any words of wisdom, no pressure, but before you get on with your days, anything you wanted to share or give advice on?
I guess if you're interested, highly recommend you apply and see where that takes you. You can always evaluate what if or when you get an offer, but would say for sure put in your application.
Thank you so much. And on that note, just a reminder that applications are due on February 14th. Someone had identified they saw February 15th somewhere. We're trying to find where that date may have come up and trying to change that online. The application deadline is February 14th. So please get them in before then on submittable. As mentioned, a few of us will stay on. Conrad, Asmina, and I will stay on for a few more minutes to answer some additional questions. But I just want to say a huge thank you to Amina, Zane, and McKinley for taking time and sharing their expertise and their photos and their stories with us. Your presence here today is really, really appreciated. So thank you so much.
So thank you for having us. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh,
Thanks,
Amina's
everyone.
going to stay on. Great.
Yeah, I can stay on for a little bit longer if anyone's got some questions directed at a fellow. So yeah.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you. Let's see. Amina, you mentioned imposter syndrome briefly earlier, and there is a question about imposter syndrome from our panelists. How did you overcome that, or how have you been overcoming that, if it's something you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can answer Brittany and Lorenzo's question in this chat in one. So yeah, I feel when I got here, it's quite easy when you're in a new context, when you're the newbie, when there's not many other foreigners in the office, to feel that imposter syndrome, also because everyone who's working at the office here is an expert in this field, in the context that you're currently working in, that you're new to. So it can really feel like you are the new kid on the block and you have a lot to learn. And I feel like a particular moment that left a lasting impact on me was the first, and that helped me get over this imposter syndrome, was that in the first month that I was doing my fellowship, I think 3 weeks of it, I was attending workshops, and from the get-go, the community members that we were working with and that I was working alongside really recognized me as a facilitator, despite knowing that I was new and knowing that I wasn't from Tanzania. And I think that, mutual trust in that scenario really helped me get over those feelings and made me think, I can do this, I can be here, and I have a lot to learn from them, and maybe I can be in a place where I can facilitate a knowledge sharing with them to learn from them, but also be able to teach them things that they might want to also grow on. And so I think that was both a standout moment for me working with the community, my first set of workshops. And these are people that I've now been working with for the last, 7 months, who I've been consistently seeing. So that relationship has only grown. And then something that also helped me get over the imposter syndrome. I think you have to get over it quick when you're here. When you're on the ground, it's so go, go, go that it's easy to just, let it go and just go with the flow, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And just a note that I feel like all of us experience imposter syndrome, myself included, even in this role. So I think it's just a normal feeling that it kind of exists, and hopefully that you'll just kind of get accustomed to dealing with as time goes on. And as Amina says, just in the moment. So thank you for sharing that, Amina. And actually, in addition to thoughts on imposter syndrome, do you have any additional advice for applicants, maybe with regards to their application process? Any other kind of things that you wish you knew before you applied or headed out headed out to Tanzania?
Yeah, I'd say don't be shy about the experience that you have. Really try to tie that experience into, what Conrad and Asmina have talked about what they're looking for in the fellowship program. Also, yes, proofread your application. But yeah, I would say just demonstrate that willingness to learn and that open-mindedness. And if you have those qualities, I think you could be quite successful in this role. And also have fun with it. They want to see that you have some personality, that you're not just a robot who's writing the same things that every other applicant is writing. So really try to focus on the things that make you stick out and really humanize that application the best that you can.
Thank you so much. And another resource that I thought I would mention. So fellows, including Amina, are required to just submit like an article or like a blog post while they're abroad to share a bit about their experience, their learnings. They're a really great window into folks' experiences, and they're on our site. It's called Dispatches from the Fellows. So we'll share a link to that later, but really recommend reading that. We're at 1:05. I wonder if Ismina or Conrad have anything else they would like to share before we wrap up.
If I can add one more thing, and that is that while considering that we have such a large alumni network, we also have a mentorship program. And each of our fellows that are heading to the field actually are introduced to a mentor, and the mentor could likely be an individual that had been in the same country, perhaps the same agency. If not, that's okay, but perhaps based in the same city, that can support the fellow with answering all their questions and sort of giving them a sense of, we're here to support you once you land on the ground. You can ask us any questions. And if they were with the same agency, this is a great way for the new fellow to gain an insight into how things work at the office, etc. And so the mentorship program is actually something that we are, very proud about. It was introduced some years ago, and it has really helped fellows each year.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm going to actually answer one question from the Q&A here, which I think we touched upon it, but it's from Jamal. How are fellows paired with their placements, and do they have any choice about where they go? So an example you use is like prior experience in the region, education and work background. That certainly all kind of factors into it. Essentially, we want to kind of get a sense of what you could kind of provide. We also want to get a sense of people's like maturity, ability to kind of handle various levels of responsibility. And at that point, in the interview, we will actually kind of post to you anywhere from 2 to 4 potential TORs for you to kind of like rank for us. And so we kind of use that because essentially we're trying to find like a match where things that are most interesting to you also are ones where you will be one of the highest picks from like our field placement. So it's kind of like a matching game like that. So you do have some say during the interview. We'll kind of give you some potential options that we feel align with your overall profile. And then ultimately, if that's a match with what the field team is looking for, then that can be converted into an offer.
Fantastic.
And other than that, for advice, just what McKinley said earlier, like if you're interested, please apply. I know a lot of people kind of say, oh, I was thinking about applying, but like, I saw Mina and Zane and McKinley and they look so impressive and I'm going to wait a few more years. And the answer is no, just don't. Just apply. Like, believe in yourself. Everybody start somewhere. You won't be kind of surprised. You'll be surprised what you can kind of achieve once you kind of go through this process. And, if you get selected, a lot of people kind of really unlocked their potential during the time of the fellowship. I see a lot of people kind of like really kind of grow into themselves, discover new aspects of like their strength and who they are as like an individual. So like if you're kind of teetering on the fence, but there's something that you desire here and you feel that you could kind of like give an honest effort, please go ahead. We look forward to reading your application, chatting with you in interviews, and perhaps seeing you in Ottawa. Thank you so much, Caro, for hosting this for us.
Yes, thank you so much, Conrad and Ismina and Amina. Really valuable to have your experiences and expertise. And thank you everyone who has attended. Thank you for all your questions. I'm so sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but hopefully we've given you a bit more information. And just as I noted at the beginning, we have an FAQ section on our website, which will hopefully give you more information. If you go to our YouTube page, we have a longer version of the fellowship video that we showed at the beginning. It shows you a bit more about what it's like abroad. And then we also have a behind the scenes video from our pre-departure training that Amin is actually featured in, as well as dispatches from the fellows, so blog posts from our fellows from in the field. So again, applications are due February 14th. Please, yeah, as Conrad said, believe in yourself, apply, and thank you again for attending, and have a great day, everybody.